Hello, 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 people. Tuesday, 7 p.m. You know what time it is. It's, of course, my show on MUFC MPB. It's me, your host, Neil Candola, bringing you another show, another live stream. And let's get straight into things. Obviously, we've got plenty to talk about. The team selection for today's Carabao Cup game, the return of the Carabao Cup champions, should I say, Manchester United in action tonight against Crystal Palace at home. And it's only the 7 changes that's been made from Eric Ten Hag, who says he doesn't like to rotate, who says he doesn't know how to use his squad. Of course, Ratcliffe's come out, and there's several reports, should I say, explaining a little bit more about where he's at in terms of the race for Manchester United. So let's get straight into things. You know, that as I said before, 7 changes to Manchester United side, the side that beat Burnley, not so convincingly, but nevertheless, it was an important win. As I say, 7 changes, so we'll go straight through them. Onana retains his place in goal. Sofyan Amrabat is right back, which we will get into shortly. It's a partnership at the back of Varane and Harry Maguire, with Dalot filling in at left back, with Casemiro, Hannibal and Mason Mount back in the midfield for Manchester United, with a front three of Pellistri, Anthony Martial and Garnacho. So plenty to discuss, plenty to go through. We'll start with, obviously, the team tonight. I think the one thing that's glaring out of a couple of changes and some rotation numbers, shall we call them, is Sofyan Amrabat. Of course, he is playing right back today. And obviously, when Manchester United signed him, everyone was excited for him because of how much he brings into the midfield, how much dynamism, and obviously how effective he is playing in that holding role just in front of the back line. But today he's playing at right back. Obviously, Manchester United haven't exactly had much luck with the injuries, and it seems that the right back position needs to be occupied, and Amrabat will get some valuable minutes, but he will get them minutes at right back. I think this will show his versatility. Whether or not we'll see an introverted fullback, as we've seen the likes of Manchester City over the years, and obviously more recently with Arsenal, remains to be seen. But I'm pretty certain that he will obviously help out in the midfield. It won't just be him playing at right back. He will get forward. He will show what he can bring. But obviously, before we get into everything else, make sure you like, subscribe to MUFC MPB's channel. Zane's already in the comments saying hello. Hello, Zane, wherever you are. Thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, pop them in the comment section. My phone's still on. Tweet me, DM me, get in touch with MUFC MPB, and let's get this show exactly where you want it to be, with me answering all the questions that you may have, whether it's related to the takeover, a bit of the team news tonight, whatever it may be. Get your questions in and I will answer every single one of them if I can. So yeah, we'll go back to the team selection a little bit. Obviously, Varane and Maguire in the centre-half partnerships, and even Dalot at left-back. Realistically, if Manchester United had a fully fit squad, every single player available, I don't think Dalot would be playing left back, Amrabat wouldn't be playing right back, and Maguire wouldn't be getting in the starting 11 either. So I think it highlights, even just in the back four, really, Man United's state of play, their struggles that they've had in injuries. You know, I don't really like to use that as an excuse, because I think it's quite feeble, as obviously every team has injuries, but not quite to the level and the extent that Manchester United currently have themselves in. But we go to the midfield. Obviously, Casemiro, I think plenty of us wanted to potentially see a bit of rotation. He's looked quite leggy in the game so far this season, and after the maximum, really, the half time, he looks to be in some bother, shall we say. You know, he struggles a little bit to keep up with the style of play that Manchester United are trying to sort of infuse into the squad, as well as tracking back. There's all sorts of stuff. So, you know, I think in an ideal world, plenty of Manchester United fans would have enjoyed, shall we say, Casemiro just being rotated for his benefit and his benefit only. He's a wonderful player, but at the end of the day, he's 31 years of age. He needs a bit of time on the sidelines, not an injury either. That's the last thing Manchester United need. And obviously, we move forward into the midfield section, the attacking midfield, if we like. We've got Hannibal and Mason Mount, which I think, look, whether or not we're fans of Mason Mount, whether or not we've been impressed by Mason Mount, which, let's be honest, I don't think many people have in the short time he's been at Man United, obviously with the injury as well that he was unfortunate to get. But look, as someone who's been very hesitant, I question massively why Mason Mount, of all players, was the one that Eric Ten Hag thought was the man to bring into Manchester United after finishing third place and, of course, winning the Carabao Cup, which Manchester United are in action in tonight. Is Mason Mount that guy? I didn't think so. But look, I'm really excited to see what he's going to provide. It's a game in the Carabao Cup where hopefully he can just get a little bit of confidence. He can really, just sort of build performances on performances, get some regular minutes into the team, and hopefully, anyway, he can provide what Eric Ten Hag saw in him and thought that he would do when he signed him in the summer, the first signing of the summer for Manchester United. And obviously, Hannibal's been impressing quite a lot. He scored against Brighton, albeit it was a consolation, but nevertheless, for him to get off the mark for his boyhood Manchester United club is a great thing to see him being trusted now with the starting team. Obviously, after his performance against Burnley as well, which a lot of people were happy and impressed with. And then the front three, you know, of Pellistri, Martial, and Garnacho, it'll be super excited to see what Alejandro Garnacho can do from a starting position, because of course he has struggled every time he started a game, which has probably been the only element of criticism for me personally I have for Garnacho at the moment. But he's still young. Anthony Martial had a very impressive cameo, should we call it, against Bayern Munich, which a couple of Manchester United fans thought, you know, okay, well, maybe there is still a player in there somewhere that can be utilised from Manchester United. And of course, Pellistri, I think many Manchester United fans have been desperate to see him get some regular action. Of course, with the likes of Mason Greenwood, Anthony not being available, and Jadon Sancho, of course, who we will have to get into later on in the show, because again, there's some reports coming out today of him staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning playing FIFA and turning up late yet again for Manchester United. And for me, I was a massive fan of Jadon Sancho before he came to Man United. I was so happy when United signed him because he's a player, you know, a similar age to me, sort of. He's a little bit younger than I am. So, you know, I'm trying to hold on to my youth days, shall we say. But, you know, it is unfortunately not panned out the way that Manchester United fans wanted. And to be honest, anyone related to the Jadon Sancho to Manchester United deal would have wanted. You know, even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came out and discussed him a little bit and said he wants to play left wing, but I'm sorry, mate, Alejandro Garnacho is the perfect understudy to Marcus Rashford on the left-hand side. So he's not going to get any minutes there. To be honest, it doesn't look like he's going to get any minutes anywhere. So there's the team. Just to summarise for the Manchester United game this evening, as soon as I'm finished, straight on goes the TV to watch Manchester United in action to see if they can defend their Carabao Cup. I'll get onto a little bit in terms of how important really is this for Manchester United. Of course, Eric Ten Hag won the competition last season. Is it really something Man United need to prioritise this season? Or should they go straight for it once again, try their best to win yet another piece of silverware and hopefully move in the right direction? I'll get into exactly my thoughts there. But I think, look, as I've said, you know, the starting 11, Onana, Amrabat, Varane, Maguire, Dalot, Casemiro, Hannibal and Mount in midfield, with a front three of Pellistri, Martial and Garnacho. And as I've said, there's plenty to discuss on today's show. Get your comments in, get your questions in. I'll be sure to fly through as many as I can. I've already had a couple of people DM me throughout the week in terms of some questions they want me to cover, so we'll get through to them as well. But as I say, I don't think there's any appropriate place to start off with other than the Sir Jim Ratcliffe news that has come out today. So obviously, look, the main headline really was David Hellier on the United View, who's spearheaded by Flex. He's a good friend of mine. He's brilliant at what he does, and he seems to come up with some good stuff for everyone else to get stuck into, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. So obviously, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is working on restructuring his bid of Manchester United, and a quote from David Hellier, directly from the United View, who said, as far as we can tell, he's now definitely trying to get back into the game. Now, we'll go into a little bit more now in terms of Sir Jim Ratcliffe stuff. You know, his proposed bid earlier this year was to acquire 69% of the shares, which is obviously owned by the Manchester United Glazer family, which, of course, sadly for all of us United fans, the unfortunate ownership that currently is at the top of the club, the one who pulls all the string and holds all the reins when it comes to United. And unfortunately for Ratcliffe anyway, that bid left obviously the minority shareholders of the club not very happy, should we say, you know, including Lindsay Train, Aerial Investments and so on and so forth. There was obviously quite a bit of uproar in terms of that side of things, because obviously Ratcliffe, his proposed bid allowed the Glazers to come out and say, well, can we still have a bit of a say in layman's terms? And unfortunately, that didn't really suit any parties. And I'm understood to know that obviously the bid from Ratcliffe, it wasn't really happy with keeping the Glazers in. He wanted to get the full control of the club and eventually buy the Glazers out in a few years, which for me rang alarm bells from day one, to be honest, that there was even consideration of keeping the Glazers in for another minute, never mind a couple of years, where you still try and save up the money and look at the bottom of the sofa to see if there's a few extra pounds to put towards your bids to acquire Manchester United. Again, it just didn't really really leave a positive taste in my mouth. It was quite a sour one, if I'm being totally honest. And ultimately, it really gets back to the point. Realistically, there's 31% of the club still to be bought out. Where's Ratcliffe going to get the money from if he can't already buy out the Glazers shares, never mind everyone else's, and also the infrastructure? I don't need to go into, Man United's training facilities at Carrington. The stadium, if any of you have been fortunate enough to go there recently, is not exactly in mint condition. And I think that's probably the most nice way I could put things, to be honest with you. It's falling apart, to be honest. There's a lot of paintwork, even basic stuff like that needs to happen at Manchester United. And I think the one thing really that I did find really amusing at the fact that Sir Jim Ratcliffe stories have come out recently is the fact that it's only been 24 hours until a nice little helicopter flew a banner which said Glazers out over another team that the Glazers own over in the States, which again is quite ironic, isn't it? One team's going really badly, one business is going not so great. Let's shift everyone's focus onto Manchester United, which is of course the bigger story. It's the one that everyone's talking about. It's the one that's grabbing all the headlines. I think it might be quite convenient to focus on that. A little bit like what they did on transfer deadline day. It was an abysmal transfer window, despite Man United bringing in a couple of players that I'm excited about, for then another sales story to come out quite literally. I think it was about 22 or 23 hours after the transfer window shut. So again, for me anyway, I think it speaks volumes that all of this stuff starts to come out just conveniently when the Glazers are starting to get a little bit of heat. It's the Glazeronomics back, and it's back in full flow, isn't it? Clearly, unfortunately for Manchester United fans, will never understand or really quite gather the full scope of the picture. But to be honest, if I'm being perfectly truthful, I think this is again another ploy for the Glazer family to direct straight at the Qatari ownership. As I've said many times, to Jim Ratcliffe, he may be restructuring his bid, whatever that may mean. We have very limited knowledge as to exactly what that means, but nevertheless, it's something again that realistically, if it's going to increase in value, okay, but it's not going to reach the levels of the Qatari bid in terms of putting the full money down straight away and acquiring the whole football club. For me, this is a ploy. This is a ploy, a smokescreen, if you like, for the Glazer family in terms of the Qataris to say, look, that your rival, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he's already thinking about how he's going to change the landscape of his bid to get himself over the line. So over to you now, Sheikh Yassim. What can you provide? How much more money can you put in? And ultimately, this is what it's going to come down to. At this stage, in my personal opinion, I'd be so surprised if Sir Jim Ratcliffe acquired Manchester United, because at the end of the day, his bid is not up to what the Glazers want. They want more and more money, and Ratcliffe couldn't even provide the full money to buy out all of the shares of Manchester United. So again, that speaks volumes at the state of his bid, where he's at currently. And like I said, there's already been reports this past week. I think it was Ben Jacobs who said, don't rule out another Qatari bid. Do you see how things are going? Do you see the common theme here? Ratcliffe comes out, or his team or his camp, or anyone who he's affiliated with, reports that he's in the works. Don't worry about me. I'm going to really try my best to get my boyhood club, even though I put a bid in for Chelsea, who I had a season ticket for however many years. Make of that what you will. Again, as I say, just to summarize this stuff, realistically, but obviously before we get into the Crystal Palace fixture that Manchester United faced themselves of today with, for me, this Ratcliffe restructuring his bid is a smokescreen. I think this is an element of saying to Sir Jim the Qatari ownership of I forgot his name. How can I be such an advocate of his name? Sheikh Yassim. There we go. As I say, we'll start that again. I think that wasn't very good at all, was it? You can tell I've had a long day. But nevertheless, as I say, to summarise everything up, I think this Sir Jim Ratcliffe news of him restructuring the bid is a ploy. It's a smokescreen at the end of the day, an almost hidden message to Sheikh Yassim to say to him, look, your counterpart, your main rival to acquire Manchester United, is making movements. He's already thinking about how can he acquire the club. So it's over to you now. Can you put in the extra 500 million that potentially we want? The extra 1 billion, 2 billion? How long is a piece of string? So for me, again, this is a bit of a smokescreen. I can't keep saying it because that's exactly how I see it. I don't think we're going to get some concrete updates in terms of where exactly the bids are at for quite a while. This could stumble over now for the next couple of months because, of course, the next transfer window open is in January. And I was told that Sheikh Yassim in particular was desperate to get the acquisition of Manchester United over the line before the summer window, so he could exactly do what he promised to do, which was to pump money in, invest in the squad, allow Erik ten Hag a proper budget, clear all the debt, which would obviously have a positive impact on the financial fair play side of things. And again, as I say, this bid from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, for me, it's not exactly what Manchester United need. But before I get into obviously the preview of Manchester United versus Crystal Palace, the double header obviously this week, Manchester United will welcome Crystal Palace not once but twice, of course, tonight in the Carabao Cup and in the Premier League on the weekend. But we'll go into the comments I've got here again from Zane saying his restructured bid isn't even an increase, meaning his valuation remains the same. I don't get it. His bid was always a problem. Why is he only restructuring it now? This is BS. Well, Zane, I'm inclined to agree with you. I always enjoy people really challenging what I say, and we can have a back and forth potentially. But Zane, my friend, I'm in total agreement with you. This doesn't seem right. He may be, reporting to media who are very credible sources, by the way. These weren't exactly coming from someone who's just, posted up and just trying to get some clicks and some followers on social media. This is coming from some concrete stuff. But ultimately, as I say, it just doesn't make any sense. He knows what the price is. He knows what it will take to get Manchester United from the Glazership. Put the money in. But unfortunately, for his side anyway, and all the people that want Sir Jim Ratcliffe into the club, he hasn't got the money for it. And even if he does scrape the money just about to get the Glazers out on a majority shareholder perspective, where's he going to get the money from to invest in the squad? Where's he going to get the money to clear all the debt that Manchester United are now in because of the Glazership ownership? Where on earth is he going to find the money to put into Carrington? There's so many questions that are not being answered and haven't been answered for however long this takeover saga has been rambling on for. And still, even with the latest bit of information that we have, nothing. No update, nothing whatsoever in terms of that stuff. So again, I don't think this is much. I think this is a bit of a red herring, something that we can almost latch onto. But unfortunately, for Manchester United fans, I don't really think that this is a massive update or an indication exactly as to where the keys of Manchester United are going to fall to. And right now, to be honest, if I'm being perfectly honest, the information that I've received over the last couple of days in terms of searching up or chasing up any information, the Glazers, to be honest, they're not really sure what they want to do. They know how much money they want. They know what they want to walk away with for the keys to Old Trafford to give away to someone. And their valuation just keeps on increasing. And then they add another factor into it, and then they say, okay, well, we don't want the debt to be included in the bid. We want that as a separate entity, because at the end of the day, they're not going to see any money from that. Like I said, this is only going to be solved once the Glazers want it to be solved. Ultimately, Sir Jim Ratcliffe can restructure his bid however he likes. He can add the money here. He can give 1% here to whoever he likes. But unfortunately for Manchester United fans, this is not going to be solved until first and foremost, the Glazers know what the hell they want to do with the football club. And second of all, someone meets a valuation, like I personally think the Qataris already have, but a valuation that is closer to what the Glazers want to eventually and finally, hopefully, leave Manchester United. But that's enough for the Glazer talk. Obviously, we will have a lot of time towards the show to get into a little bit of the old Jadon Sancho stuff. But, unfortunately, it keeps rambling on. And sadly, anyway, for a lot of supporters of Jadon Sancho, even Jadon Sancho fans who supported him over the decisions made by Erik ten Hag, the manager, unfortunately, he's not leaving much to sort of defend at this time. There's reports coming out of him staying up till all hours playing games and also turning up late yet again for training. It speaks volumes, unfortunately, but we'll get into all of that stuff a little bit later. Like I said before, and I'll always say throughout the show, be sure to like and subscribe. Ash and Anton, who are the regular contributors to this channel, their @handles for Twitter or X, however you want to call it. I'm still in the mode of calling it Twitter, by the way. I can't get used to that. So thanks, Elon. And thanks for taking my blue tick away as well. I worked really hard for that, and now I have to pay for it, which I'm not too comfortable about. But I think that's another story for another stream and another day. But look, as I say, like, subscribe, get in touch, DM me, comment in the live stream. Let's get a chat going on. Let's get conversations of Manchester United content. Let's see what you guys want to talk about, and hopefully I can give you an answer to all the questions you may have. And just before I carry on, I think I was told recently that Ash isn't feeling too well, a regular contributor to this. Just want to say, if you are listening, which I'm sure you are, mate, I wish you a speedy recovery, whatever it may be, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the stuff that you're going to be providing for MUFC MPB. So let's get into into the game today, of course, Manchester United begin their defence of the Carabao Cup, the glorious Carabao Cup, may I add, because it gave Manchester United fans some wow-needed celebrations, albeit it's the lesser trophy out of all the ones possible, but nevertheless, it got the monkey off the back of Manchester United. I think it was 5 years they went without a single trophy. So we'll get into the game today, and ultimately, Manchester United need a resounding win. There is a lot of rotation, but ultimately, there's a lot of players on that pitch today who have a lot to prove. Amrabat's coming in, albeit he's at right back, but he still wants to provide a performance which will excite the Manchester United fans. And this is exactly what I want to see, by the way. Of course, he wants to play in midfield. Of course, he wants to be the guy who's dictating the play and making them brilliant passes that he's been renowned for throughout the whole of his career. But he's going, do you know what, Gaffer? If you need me at right back, I'll play at right back. And bet your bottom dollar he'll put a shift in today. I'll guarantee you that, because he is a brilliant player. Wait till you guys have the pleasure of seeing him properly. I know he came on for a very late cameo towards the back end of the game of the Premier League at the weekend, and I think he gave a silly foul away, but I think that was just his eagerness to get involved in the game. But look, as I said before, this is a good tester for Manchester United. The Carabao Cup always provides a platform, doesn't it, to rotate, to try new ideas out, and ultimately see and give the opportunity to players who aren't in the first team to make their claim, make the stake for why you should be in Erik ten Hag's starting 11. And ultimately, that's why I think it brings such value. We'll go into the comments. I've just been asked here thoughts on the Mason Mount return. Well, look, I think you guys who have already heard a bit of what I've said on these streams and even on TalkSport on my own platforms as well, the Mason Mount transfer to Manchester United was questionable, to say the least. The fact that Erik ten Hag looked at that Manchester United side, who of course won the Carabao Cup, who finished third place in a very difficult season for him to navigate his way through. He looked at that side and thought, right, what we need to get us to the next level, to break into the top two and potentially challenge for all the other competitions Man United fell short in last season. Mason Mount. I really had a lot of questions when this first signing came in, especially when Man United are on a restricted budget for one reason or the other, which of course is not Erik ten Hag's fault. It's not the club's fault. It's the owner's fault. But like I said, let's not get sidetracked. But look, at the end of the day, Mason Mount is a new player at Manchester United. We all remember the videos when he turned up to do all the media work for the club. He was sat next to his father, and there was a clip where they were both still mic'd up, unaware of the fact that they were still being recorded. And his old man put his arm around him and said, look at this, mate. This is home. This is home. And what an amazing thing to hear. What a brilliant thing to hear for a Manchester United fan, for a player to turn around and say, look, this is where I belong. That was great to see. And ultimately, I hope I'm wrong. I don't say that many times throughout that whole of my life, to be honest, but I genuinely hope that I'm completely wrong about Mason Mount. I really hope that he does come into the team and he provides a brilliant option for Erik ten Hag moving forward. And tonight would be the perfect opportunity for him to come back into the team. He's been trusted with a start. Let's see if he can have a positive impact on the game. And ultimately, my big issue with him was the fact that he just couldn't get into the game. It was a situation every time he came onto the pitch that he struggled to make them, really effective 1-2 passes that he was renowned for in Chelsea's really successful Champions League season. He clearly has a lot of capabilities and a lot of ability to provide for a football club. But is Manchester United the team for him? Is ultimately Mason Mount the player for Manchester United? I think we'll get a lot more of an indication today when he does make his start against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup. And like I said before, there's a lot of conversation, isn't there? There's a lot of discussion about, well, what's the point in the Carabao Cup for a team like Manchester United? But for me, it's one of my favourite competitions. And I'll tell you why before everyone goes, what? When there's the Champions League on offer, there's a Premier League on offer, this is Manchester United. I get all that. But the reason why I'm such a fan of the Carabao Cup, the final is way before any of the finals. It's just before the real sort of peak element of the season, the crunch time, shall we call it, in the footballing season. The finals nice and early. This is a great confidence builder. This is something realistically that Man United could really build a lot of momentum from if they win a trophy nice and early, which can hopefully allow them to kick on for the remainder of the the business end of the season. And you never know where Manchester United might be. They could still be in the Champions League. If they are, they could get a lot of confidence and a lot of incentive from obviously winning the Carabao Cup for the second season in a row. row. So, like I said, it's a brilliant competition from my perspective, because I just think, why not get a bit of silverware before everyone else? Why not try and win a trophy at the first time of asking, just like Erik ten Hag did last year? So, like, as I say, this is something that I do believe that can be a real huge momentum builder for Manchester United and Erik ten Hag. Let's get far in this competition. Let's keep knocking off the round and building some real momentum, as I keep saying, and ultimately allow a platform for the players who are coming back from injury. And I don't have to tell you guys how many injuries Man United have had already at the start of this season, as well as trying out new things. If you want to play Amrabat at right back, this is the competition to bloody do it in. So, as I say, this is something that I think can be really useful if Manchester United utilise this competition in the right way. And, I've just seen a comment now from Mac Gumi. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, mate, but it says here, I'm staying positive. Excited to see Garnacho and Palestri together. I'm with you, mate. I'm totally with you. Manchester United have based their history not just on winning trophies, but giving youth an opportunity, giving the youngsters who are coming through the ranks, coming through the academy numbers, and allowing a platform for them to prove what they can do on one of the biggest stages of them all, 75,000 in front of Old Trafford, in front of this Manchester United team. Let's see what you guys can do. And it's so exciting, isn't it? Two young kids on both sides of the flank, providing some hopeful youth and legs with Martial, who will hopefully anyway bring a bit of experience. So again, I'll go back to it. This is a perfect opportunity for Manchester United players to get themselves in the right mentality. They've had a really difficult start, and let's be honest, a really disappointing start to the campaign this year. Let's try and build a bit of momentum. I'll go into directly as well the next 6 games Manchester United have coming up. They've got Crystal Palace in there and some very favourable fixtures, if I'm being totally honest. There's 6 games before the Manchester derby at Old Trafford. So without ruining what's going to come up later on in the show in terms of my opinion, Man United needs to go on a very good run here. They need to get on a positive run and ultimately allow their team to be in a place of confidence where they can go toe-to-toe with Manchester City. Because right now, I am genuinely scared to death of what that result could be if Man United play the way they have been in the last few weeks. I know they had not a convincing performance, but an important performance against Burnley to keep them out and obviously win. I've just had another comment come through now. Mount is going to score. And you know what, mate? I am so hopeful that he does. As I say, just because I was so hesitant doesn't mean that I want him to fail. That is not how I roll. The way that I want things to operate is Manchester United at the best. And if Mason Mount can provide that through solid performances of his own and also contribute to the other players around him, then I'm all for that. I'm all for Mason Mount being a huge success at Man United, even if that means I have to, wipe a little bit of egg off my face and hold my hands up and say I got that one wrong. But look, I think, as I've mentioned a little bit in terms of obviously the Burnley game, I think there are a couple of bits of reflection, if you like, that we can take from that the win. First and foremost, I got a few quite funny messages when I was on this very stream last week, and I called out Bruno Fernandes, basically saying that he wasn't good enough in the big games, in the big moments, and what does he go and do? Score an absolute worldie, guaranteed goal of the month, and probably a goal of the season contender. Nice one, Bruno. If my criticisms work for him, then I'll continue to do so. But jokes aside, look, I think at the end of the day, that doesn't really change my opinion on him. It wasn't exactly, a powerhouse across Europe, with all due respect to Burnley. I think it would be a miracle if they even stay in the Premier League this season, the way that they're going. I think they're at bottom of the league now. They maybe Sheffield might be actually now, the fact that they got pumped by 8 goals as well. So I think they're in the relegation zone, as I say. It wasn't exactly a team that, Man United should be fearing. And especially in that first half, it could have got really bad for Manchester United. Burnley had a few good opportunities. But nevertheless, Man United got the win. They got a much needed 3 points on the board after several losses in a row. And look, one person who I do want to give a shout out to, a massive one, is Mr. Johnny Evans. Wow. I don't think it takes a genius to work out that Manchester United fans weren't exactly over the moon when Johnny Evans was announced as the backup centre-half to the likes of Lindelof, Martinez, Varane and Maguire, and even Luke Shaw, if obviously he played there last season. No one was off their seat jumping. I think even the nostalgia fans have seen Johnny Evans, a player from the Sir Alex Ferguson era, come back to the club. Yeah, it was a good story, but realistically, it's not going to make Man United any closer to where they want to get to in terms of the Premier League or even the Champions League. But look, the way that he played in that game, the assist he provided for the Bruno goal, take nothing away from it. It was a superb finish, but the way that Johnny Evans put it on a plate for Bruno Fernandes to fire home, it takes a lot for a centre-half to be able to do that, even at his age of, I think it's 35. A massive testament to him. And the one thing I will say about Bruno Fernandes, I think a lot of people know that I don't think he's at the level. I think there are a lot of questions about his temperament and his attitude. But the one thing I absolutely loved this weekend was the post-match interviews where Bruno Fernandes was handed the man of the match award. And what did he go and do? He handed it to Johnny Evans, said, "This one's for you, mate." I absolutely love that. And like I've said always, I'm not just going to be blind at the fact that I'm not a massive fan of Bruno Fernandes, but nevertheless, I am so happy that he did that, because for me, Johnny Evans was the man of the match. For him to come into the team basically under the impression that he's going to get hardly any minutes for Manchester United, and then be told a matter of hours before kickoff, I think it was probably less than 24 hours, that you're going to be starting for Manchester United in a must-win game for the 20-time champions. That is unbelievable for him to play like that. He made some really important headers away, some clearances. He kept very assured in the back line. It was a real top-class performance, which I expect from someone of his experience, but nevertheless, it was superb. And for him to say all the stuff that he was saying after, he's one of the only players at Manchester United that really understands what it means to play for the club. Of course, there'll be several players that have an idea, you know, the likes of Casemiro and Varane, who obviously played at Real Madrid, which is arguably a bigger club than Manchester United. But Johnny Evans came into that side and ultimately said, look, this is exactly what it means for Man United. His smile, the smile on his face after is exactly what it's all about to play for Manchester United. That needs to be drummed into every single player at that club, including Jadon Sancho, who I will get onto very shortly, because at the end of the day, I don't think it's appropriate to do a Man United stream today of all days, even with a Man United game coming up, even with the Sir Jim Ratcliffe news earlier today, and not talk about Jadon Sancho. But before we get into that, I think we should go into the little bit of the positive category. We'll open that vault, shall we call it, from the Burnley game. Look, United were under the cosh, as I've put here. Burnley had plenty of chances, as I've said before. But look, you know, Onana, let's talk about Onana. He made one brilliant save in particular that I can remember that really kept Man United in the game at 0-0. That would have been a game changer, because at the end of the day, Man United's temperament is shocking when they go 1-0 down. You can almost bet your bottom dollar virtually it's about as good as over when Man United concede first, because the heads just drop. It's almost a bit of PTSD from all the other games where they've been battered when they go 1-0 down away from home. And thankfully, Onana kept them in the game. He did his job brilliantly. He got a much needed clean sheet for his confidence as well. So again, another bit of positivity. Rasmus Højlund didn't have the greatest game, but look, we need to expect this from a player of his age. He has come in and he's shown loads of positivity in terms of the way he plays, his eagerness, his desperation almost, if you like, to make it a battle with his centre-half that's marking him. And ultimately, he will provide a brilliant outlet for Manchester United in the months and years to come. But he struggled a little bit against Burnley. You know, I don't think he had too much experience in that old classic wet night away at Burnley. I know it's normally Stoke, but this time it was Burnley. But I think there was some good elements of play to his game with Rashford. I think eventually this could be a devastating partnership for Manchester United if they can get it right. Of course, there was a little bit of news coming out that they've been speaking away from the training ground, away from the club, in terms of getting to know each other, how each other likes to play the game, how they can really, you know, focus on each other's strengths and play to it essentially. So I think that would be good in terms of moving forward. The midfield still needed a bit of assurance realistically, and sadly anyway, Amrabat's at right back. I would have loved to have seen him today in midfield. Let's see what you're all about, mate. I've hung my hat on you for a long time now. I've said it on all sorts of platforms. Amrabat is a brilliant signer for Manchester United. So look, even though he's at right back, I still think we'll see some of the best things that he can contribute to this Manchester United side. And now, look, before obviously I get into everything else, be sure to like and subscribe to MUFC MPB. The YouTube channel's growing. We're looking to get it as big and as far of a reach as we can. Make sure you follow MUFC MPB on Twitter. They're always up to date, virtually by the minute or even the second at times, with all the latest Man United news from all platforms, from all journalists out there that are concrete and reliable. MUFC MPB will be all over it. So make sure you guys click the like, click the follow. Follow myself, Ash Anton, the regular contributors to this channel on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are in the description below. So hit it, get in touch. Tell me what you guys want to talk about, and we'll take it from there. But before we get into the next 6 games for Manchester United, I just want to touch on, unfortunately, anyway, the Jadon Sancho saga. And now it's just a difficult one, isn't it? And I always take a deep breath halfway through when I get into a topic that I don't really want to be spending too much time talking about. But the way that Manchester United are at the moment, unfortunately, we're going to have to. So I'm just going to have to take a little bit of water down the throat, clear the airwaves before we start talking Jadon Sancho. Oh, that's always good. Right. Jadon Sancho. Now, look, let's take it back, shall we, to when he first signed for Manchester United. He signed, obviously, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. The season before that, Manchester United were desperate to sign him as a right winger. That position has really haunted Manchester United for one reason or the other for many a year. They just can't seem to find someone who's really going to cement themselves in that position. And now, look, the links came out with Jadon Sancho. Initially, I was questioning, somewhat the signing, not because I wasn't a massive fan of Jadon Sancho. I thought he was absolutely superb. The way that he carries himself on the pitch, it's exciting, it's raw, it's always direct. That is the description of a Manchester United winger, isn't it? So when Man United signed him, although I was a little bit hesitant because of the stuff that I saw of him at Borussia Dortmund, all of his effective play was coming off the left-hand side, which made me think a little bit, okay, well, are we shoehorning him in? But at the end of the day, if a player's that effective and is as good as he's as good as I thought he would be, then there wouldn't be too much of a problem. He's going to come into this side. He's still at a very, very young age. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, by some miracle, could potentially provide the management and the coaching skills that Jadon Sancho needs to become the right winger at Manchester United. This was something I was so excited about. But look, it hasn't worked out for Jadon Sancho is probably the understatement of the year. Of course, Erik ten Hag put him on a one-on-one private camp somewhere in the mountains, as some people jokingly were reporting. But at the end of the day, as I say, the understatement of the year is saying Jadon Sancho has not worked at Manchester United. The latest reports are suggesting that he turned up late yet again for Manchester United duties, and it all came down to ultimately the fact that he was on FIFA at 3 o'clock in the morning. And now add that to the story as well, reportedly, that he was on FIFA. It's a brilliant game, by the way, but not exactly when your employees are playing in a really important game. The game against Bayern Munich, Manchester United's return to the Champions League, there was a bit of evidence going around the social media world that he was on FIFA while the game was on. Someone jokingly said to me, could you imagine the headlines if he was playing as Bayern Munich? Well, I'll leave that. I'll leave that one. We don't want to add any more negativity on the Jadon Sancho saga. But look, jokes aside, this is a situation that Manchester United fans are going to be ultimately fed up of. It was a scenario over the last week or so where Manchester United fans were ultimately put into a decision that they need to make. Are you going to back the manager in the way that he's treated Jadon Sancho, or are you going to go with the player? And a lot of Manchester United fans, from what I gathered, including myself, stuck with Erik ten Hag and said, look, whatever the manager says, we're going with that. He's the man in charge. He's head honcho, and whatever he goes is whatever he says, goes, and that's final. And there were obviously a couple of Manchester United fans that said, look, Jadon Sancho hasn't had the fair, bargain of this deal. He came out, of course, and pinned that tweet, didn't he? Basically saying that he was a scapegoat, essentially, for Manchester United's downfall in recent times. And then, obviously, he pinned the tweet, as I say, and then he hesitated to tweet it for however long. And then he deleted the tweet, and obviously Manchester United fans were quite hopeful that, okay, well, this may potentially be, the reintegration of Jadon Sancho. But as I've said before, the latest stories again now that he's playing video games until the early hours of the morning is awful, really, isn't it? And look, I've been very hesitant to really go in strong on my personal opinion on this situation because, as we know, there's always 3 sides to a story, isn't it? Side A, side B, and the truth. And ultimately, although I'm going to go with Erik ten Hag because he's the manager, I always was quite hesitant to really understand the situation from Jadon Sancho's perspective. But look, the latest reports, the fact that he's on FIFA till 3 o'clock in the morning when he's got training in a matter of hours for Manchester United Football Club, is nothing short of a disgrace. This is a guy who has lived out and is currently, by the letter of the law, living out so many people's dreams across the footballing world and even beyond that. He's playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. He's at Manchester United, where the right wing space in the pitch is vacant at the moment. He could really come into that team, and if he's worth the money that Man United paid for him, he'd be able to really make that place his own, that position that will become Jadon Sancho's on that right-hand side. But what does he go and do? He has a spark out with the manager. He tweets a pin tweet, shall I call it, basically calling himself the scapegoat. Very similar word usage and language that he used at his time during the end of Borussia Dortmund. And again, there's just these common themes with Jadon Sancho, with his attitude, with his application. And as I've said before, the fact that he's turning up late because of the very reason as to why he's not in the squad anyway speaks volumes. This is exactly why he's not in the squad. And this is exactly why, if he continues the way he is, that he'll struggle to really reach the potential of his footballing ability. Because you can have all the talent in the world, but as I've said before, and I'll say again, it's professionalism over talent every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Jadon Sancho, I'm sorry. I was such a massive fan of Jadon Sancho coming into Manchester United. I thought this is the epitome of a United winger, a young, raw, hungry, direct young man who just wants to be involved in goals, whether it's assists, whether it's hitting the back of the net himself. I want to be the main guy. And I thought this could have been, and this should have been, and it would have been a match made in heaven. But unfortunately, Jadon Sancho has forgotten who's the boss. The boss is Erik ten Hag. And whatever he says is the final word. And if he cannot, at the end of the day, answer to his employer, answer to his hierarchy at the club, and ultimately just hold his hands up and say sorry, then at the end of the day, there's nothing there for Jadon Sancho to come back to the club. And I'll just take it back to a very, very simple scenario that I've been in. I used to work many moons ago, before I did any media work, before I had the gig at Talk Sport, before I used to write articles for the MEN, all of that stuff. I used to work at a warehouse, right? I used to sort parcels out at Royal Mail. And I'm not going to slag Royal Mail off too much, because they gave me a job just as I came out of university and provided me with some well-needed money off the back of being a skint student, shall we say. But look, there was a situation, a very small situation, where the manager at Royal Mail had a massive go at me for something I didn't even do. It was a case of sorting out the parcels. There was a parcel in the wrong area, and ultimately, if it's in the wrong area, it's going to go to the wrong place, right? This was a situation where it wasn't even me who put the parcel in. The manager had a massive go at me to say, why have you put that parcel in? Why have you done this? Why have you done that? I said politely, look, it wasn't me, mate. And he said, well, it was you. You're the one who's here, so it must be you, right? What did I do? I could have easily said, right, well, here's your high vis, stuff your job, and I'm out of here. What did I do? I just said, all right, yeah, mate, sorry about that. We'll make sure it doesn't happen again. It was forgotten about completely. If that can happen at a job like Royal Mail, if that can happen in a warehouse where you sort parcels out, why the hell can that not happen at the highest level of a job, in terms of wages, in terms of a weekly figure coming into your bank account every single 7 days? It just is beyond belief. Every single one of us, well, most of us anyway, cannot relate to what it's like to be a professional footballer at the top of the game. Of course we can't. But at the end of the day, we can all relate to what it's like to have a bit of a predicament with your manager at the workplace. And ultimately, you can fight your corner until you're blue in the face, but the manager is the manager for a reason, because he or she is the one in charge. And if you can't respect that, even if you know in your heart of hearts that, potentially if this went to the courts and, we had a lawyer each side and we were arguing our points, I'd probably come out on top. There is no point whatsoever going down that route. There is no point dragging your heels in. There is no point of prolonging this situation. All it takes is just an apology to go, do you know what? I'm sorry. And if you could give me any pointers as to where I can improve, great. The whole situation is gone, and you can bet your bottom dollar Erik ten Hag, he's a man of his word. He will bring Jadon Sancho back into the side. All it takes is a one word. Even if you don't mean it, people can go on about morals and look, if I don't mean it, I'm not going to say it. And you can do that all you like, and you can continue to do that throughout the whole of your life. But unfortunately, there are going to be situations, even on the other side, if any of us in this chat or watching this stream are fortunate enough to become managers or the senior roles or senior level of authority in any workplace, there are going to be situations where you're in the wrong. But ultimately, as your employee, as employer, you need to be the person who's going to be putting out, right, this is right, this is wrong. And ultimately, there's going to be some people that apologize to you, even though you don't deserve an apology. And then everyone can move on. Everything can be forgotten about. And this is what I just don't understand. It's so simple. But I think, again, this is reflective of Jadon Sancho's attitude and application. And as I've said many a times, I've already said it on the stream, and I'll say it one more time, just in case you don't know where I stand with this. It's professionalism over talent every single day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Because I tell you what, all it will take is an apology from Jadon Sancho and he will be reintegrated into the Manchester United side. But instead, what does he want to do? He wants to build his ultimate team and basically play until 3 o'clock in the morning, and hopefully he can get he can put himself in steam, because unfortunately that's the only way he's going to get minutes at this moment in time, is on a bloody game. And it really annoys me, because I was such a fan of Jadon Sancho, and even the stuff off the pitch, he's a really likable guy for someone of my age or similar age group. He's into similar music as I am. He wears loads of clothes, not that we wear, because I can't even afford half of that, well, probably even 10% of that, never mind half of it. But it's really likable. You become almost accustomed to grow a bond towards these players, whether or not loads of people think that sounds stupid. But as football fans, I'm sure all of you guys can relate and really, sort of empathize with. At the end of the day, these guys are someone who you look up to. These are the people that really bring you happiness on a Saturday afternoon if they can win. And unfortunately, I've had to eat my own words. Hopefully, I'll do a Mason Mount, because I don't think he's going to prove to be the guy. But if he does, I'll happily go on this stream. I'll go on my own Twitter account and say I got it wrong. But with Jadon Sancho, I did get it wrong, but the complete opposite way. I thought to myself, and I said to many people, even people who have supported Manchester United longer than I've been born, I've said, look, this kid is what it's all about. He is the one that's going to be the future, not just for Man United, but for England as well. He is money. That's what I said. He is gold dust. This guy's going to come in and really shake things up in a positive way. Well, he has shook things up in the total opposite way of what I thought. He's turning up late to Manchester United training when he's already in trouble for turning up late as it is anyway. I think I could go on, but we've only got 15 minutes left of this stream. So I think I'm going to pause there on the Jadon Sancho stuff. You guys know now where I'm at. I think the race is ran for Jadon Sancho. Ultimately, the fact that he's turning up late, at the same time he's already in trouble for turning up late, speaks volumes. It describes everything. And all the people that supported Jadon Sancho, not just in this situation, but throughout the whole of his career, unfortunately, have been let down by a young individual who cannot understand professionalism outweighs and always will beat the talent every day of the week, twice on a Sunday. So look, as I say, we're getting into the last 15 minutes. There's all sorts of things that we could talk about realistically, but I just want to go through the next 6 games that Manchester United have. Ultimately, this is something that could be, and it may sound strong, it could be season defining for Manchester United, because the next 6 games, there's only one away game in that 6-game run, and that's away to Sheffield United. And for all of you who know, Sheffield United just got pumped by 8 goals. So, if we're going to pick one away game in the Premier League, I think that would be the one, and that would be the one in a heartbeat. But look, we'll jump into the comment section here. It says here, Sancho back to Dortmund. Any news on that? Is he gone in January? Right, so I know I've just summarised all the Jadon Sancho stuff, but obviously, look, there was a report earlier that was suggesting that there was some hesitancy, should we call it, from the Dortmund camp, who may be interested in bringing Jadon Sancho back to the club in terms of his addiction, could we call it, to consoles, to playing games late in the evening to early hours of the morning. And that was ultimately a reservation that they had at the time. And for that now to spill over into his new club, into his current club, could potentially be another issue. That could be another problem as to why that he doesn't get shipped out. And could this be yet another massively overpaid Manchester United player who is currently not even on the bench, just rotting away his career, taking up the money that could easily be put into someone else at the football club, whether that be bringing someone in or someone who's deserving of a new contract, is just taking up all of that money. It's taking up an opportunity and it's taking up a space in that football club. So yeah, potentially Jadon Sancho could return back to Borussia Dortmund. This could be something that could elevate and happen eventually. But ultimately, his attitude is going to be the thing that lets him down. It's going to have to be, as I say, something that's going to be almost a miracle in terms of changing things around for him. So it's going to be very difficult for him to find a suitor. It's going to be very difficult for him to ultimately to find some club who's going to take the risk on that. But look, we'll go back into what I was going to talk about. Before I do, make sure you guys smash the like button, subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. It really allows us to provide a platform for you guys to really talk everything Manchester United, good, bad, and the ugly. And with the last 2 probably the the main topics of agenda in the last few weeks. But like, subscribe, follow MUFC MPB on Twitter, on YouTube, follow myself and Il Candola on Twitter if you like what you hear. If you don't like what you hear and you just want to give me a bit of abuse, lovely stuff, just hit the follow button and we're all happy. But look, we'll go into the final 10 minutes. We've still got a couple of things to get through. But the ones who are watching as well, I should have mentioned it at the start of the show, but I've completely got sidetracked by all the stuff that we've had to talk about today. I mean, yet another busy day in the world of Manchester United. But what I normally do, I normally round my shows off with a shout out to a Manchester United player, past or present, whatever you want to name, whoever you want to name, should I say, for whatever reason, give me a shout out. You know, in the past couple of weeks, I've had people like Makeda being shouted out. I've had all sorts of players. I had Hannibal last week because of his goal. So get your comments in. Who do you want to give a shout out to who have played for Manchester United, who are still at the club? It could be anyone and anyone. Anyone or anyone? That doesn't even make sense. You can tell it's 48 minutes into the stream, can't you? I'm just so excited, clearly, for the Man United game. These things happen. But like I said, get in the comments below, you know, who do you want to give a shout out to, who have played and who has represented Manchester United before? Let me know, get in touch, and then I'll give you guys my answer for this week. And I think if you can tell by the collars that are just slightly up, you may have an indication of who I want to shout out this week. But look, we'll talk about now the last section, the very final section for you guys, just before the Man United game. Like I said, Man United in action tonight against Crystal Palace. We will have a bit of an indication into some of the players, where they're at in terms of their fitness, in terms of who's trying to break into that side. We will find out today. There's 7 changes made from the win against Burnley. So can we see another performance where Man United get the victory? Can we even go one better and hopefully even see a resounding victory? How good would it be for the Manchester United fans who are watching, wherever they may be, to see a 3-4 goal win tonight? That would be exactly what the doctor ordered, wouldn't it? So we'll go on to the games. We've got Crystal Palace, of course, not just today, but at the weekend as well, in a home fixture again, in the Premier League this time, though. So look, 2 games. Crystal Palace over the years I can't really recall any games, to be honest, that Crystal Palace have played Manchester United and Man United have been totally comfortable throughout. There have been some disappointing results in there against Crystal Palace over the years. I think there even might be 1 or 2 at Old Trafford. So it doesn't exactly bode as a fixture that Man United can go, okay, look, we're easily going to win that. And especially in the form that Man United have been showing recently as well. Don't really think any game's going to be really easy. But look, them 2 games, they're Crystal Palace back-to-back. Of course, both sides, I assume, will make a lot of changes in the following game next week. Not even next week, in a matter of days this weekend, you know. So we'll have to wait and see what the team selection will be like. I assume, as I say, it'll be very different to what it is today. But look, you're playing the same team at the same ground at Old Trafford 2 games in a row. Let's build a bit of momentum. Let's try and get 2 wins on the board in 2 different competitions and really put behind us the defeats that we've had in the last few weeks. Burnley was a step in the right direction, but it wasn't exactly the finished product, was it? So let's really hope that they can get some wins into their belt against the same team. And then we move on to the Champions League. Galatasaray at home. You know, Galatasaray, mark my words, Galatasaray away will be ridiculously difficult for Manchester United. I think that place is known as hell. So make of that what you will. So, you know, again, there's another game, but that's at home. You know, it's in the Champions League. You know, Manchester United back in the Champions League at home. That would be a quite some viewing, wouldn't it? The Champions League music ringing around the walls of Old Trafford, the decaying walls of Old Trafford, by the way. Thanks, Joel and Avram. So yeah, you know, that game again will look to be winnable. We've got Brentford at home after that in the Premier League. We've got another Premier League fixture, the Sheffield United away, and then we've got Copenhagen at home in the Champions League. I'm going to say it now. In all of these games up until the Manchester derby on the 29th of October, Manchester United have to win every single game. I don't care how badly they've performed. I don't care how many questions there are of the midfield. I don't care about the injuries. The size of a club like Manchester United, the stature of a club like Manchester United should be beating Palace twice in a row. They should be beating Galatasaray at home. They should be beating Brentford and Sheffield United, and they should be beating Copenhagen at home in the Champions League as well. These are games that Manchester United should be ticking off with a foul tip, bang, 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 and just not even worry about it. And especially the fact after this 6-game run, Manchester United will be coming up against Manchester City, the informed team in the world right now. They're yet to even draw a game. They are in scintillating fashion and form, even by their brilliant standards, which doesn't give me a lot of pride and hope to be saying that, especially when Man United are only, less than a month, just over a month away from playing them. So look, Manchester United are going to have a very, very difficult game against Manchester City. And if they even play even in the slightest the way that they have in the last few weeks, unfortunately, it could be a very, very disappointing result. It could even go in the way of the 7-0 against Liverpool, and even the 2-0. I think it finished 2-0 against Manchester City just after that 7-0. And for me, it was just as bad. I call that game a death by 1,000 cuts because Manchester City weren't even in second gear. They didn't even make a substitution that game, and after 2-0, they were cruising by some distance. The difference, the gulfing class between Manchester Manchester United and Manchester City that day. Please, we cannot see that again. We cannot go through that again as Manchester United fans. So ultimately, we have these 6 games coming up before the derby. Man United need to be getting 6 wins. I don't even want to see a draw in there. I don't even want to see, well, look, at least we got a point on the board in the Champions League. Oh, okay, well, we sometimes struggle against Brentford. Or no, none of that. None of that garbage. We're Manchester United. This is Manchester United Football Club. They need to get back to winning ways. And if you could cherry pick 6 games, I think most of these games, especially the fact that 5 out of the 6 of them are bloody at home. And the one away game is the team that just got pumped by 8 goals by Newcastle. So this is no excuse for Manchester United. This is no excuse territory. They need to be winning every single game, and a couple of them by quite some distance as well. But look, we'll go through, just before I give my shout out to the player of this week, we'll go through a couple of the comments. Seems to me that, and by the way, if I stop in between one of these comments, it's because I haven't read them. I'm just going to read them straight as I say them. So if I stop, it's probably because I'm not allowed to say them for some obvious reasons, one way or the other. But Ian Disbury's got involved. Good to hear from you, Ian. Thanks for getting involved. Big shout out to you, my friend. He said, seems to me that Sir Jim Ratcliffe reconstructing his bid could just be a ploy to get Sheikh Yassim to increase his bid. Where has this report come from? Is it from Rain, the Glazers, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's camp? It's all a mess. Hashtag Glazers out. My friend, I agree totally. It's so convenient, isn't it? It is the epitome of the Glazer ownership that just after a lovely helicopter took a massive banner that said Glazers out on the other side of the world in America, that just dropped. The news reached worldwide, especially for Man United fans to hear, okay, well, maybe it's not just us that the Glazers are really making unhappy. Less than 24 hours, what happens? There's a sales story. There's a sales story again. Hello, everyone. Don't look over there. Look over here. It just speaks volumes, as it always bloody does with the Glazers. And do you want to know something? I think the most beautiful thing about the Glazer ownership, the only thing, is the fact that Man United fans aren't stupid anymore. We are not going to believe the BS that is constantly thrown down our throats, constantly on our news feeds, whether that be on social media, whether that be when you pick up the newspaper. It's always there, isn't it? The Glazers, the Glazer-nomics, all of that garbage. And you know what? Even Ian coming through and saying that comment there, the fact that for him it's all just a ploy, it's brilliant to see. It's brilliant to see Manchester United fans, wherever they may be, finally taking note and being open and being public about the fact that they know that this is all a ploy. This is all a game at the end of the day to the Glazers. It's nothing more than that. They are sitting on a gold mine with Manchester United. As I've said before, from a business perspective, hats off to you, gentlemen. You've done something quite extraordinary. You've put virtually diddly squat of your own money into it, and now you're going to be walking away with virtually £1 billion for each family member. Kudos from a business perspective. But as I've said many a time, Manchester United is not a business. It's a football club. It's the most important thing to so many people's lives across the world. And let's be honest, it is being treated just like a cash cow, and we cannot have it anymore. But look, we've got only a couple of minutes left of the stream. As I said, a massive thank you for everyone to getting involved. But I always like to end the show on a shout out. We always like a bit of positivity here on MUFC MPB, despite being Manchester United supporters, and there's hardly any bloody positivity going around the club for quite some time. We always want to end it on a positive. So my shout out this week is a man. I'll just make sure these collars are looking nice. Yep, they're looking all good. Is Eric Cantona. My, oh my, what a player. This was the guy who, for me, is the most underrated player in Premier League history when it comes to an all-time 11. Hardly anyone puts in Eric Cantona, but for me, I just have no idea whatsoever why people don't even consider Cantona in that best 11 of the Premier League, because he won 4 titles in 5 leagues at Manchester United. The only time he didn't win a league was when he got a slight, suspension for a little kung fu kick here and there, but we won't focus on that too much. But look, he joined from Leeds when realistically Sir Alex Ferguson only had a little conversation about another player going the other way, that he said, well, what's Eric Cantona's availability like? He was brought in, I think, for less than a couple of million quid, and obviously it was a bit different back then. But as I say, 4 league titles in 5 years, 2 league doubles in 2 of them years. Before his arrival, Man United had 0 trophies, 0 doubles, 0 titles in 26 years. He was the catalyst for transforming Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. Even read some of the stuff that Sir Alex Ferguson says about Eric Cantona. This guy was the catalyst as to why Manchester United, why they are here right now with 20 Premier League titles. He was only there for 5 years, but my oh my, what a 5 years. He was the talisman. He was the guy that everyone thinks or likes to shoehorn Fernandes into. He just stepped up. I think I saw a ridiculous statistic. I might get it wrong by 1 or 2 games, but I think it was in one of the seasons that he won the Premier League title with Man United. Man United won, I think, 12 games, around about 11 to 13 games by one goal victory. And Eric Cantona scored every single one of them goals. If that is not big game player, if that is not big game bully, as I like to call Marcus Rashford, then I don't know what is. He was a superb player. And for me, his appearances, his influence on Manchester United, the way that he turned up at Old Trafford and said, you know what? I'm the main man here. I'm big enough. Is this club big enough for me? I think that speaks volumes. And he backed it up every time he stepped onto the pitch. And he was nothing short of a pleasure to have at Manchester United. And for me, I'm a little bit too young to really remember anything from the days. I don't think I was born when Cantona was there. But what he set up for Manchester United is forever in the folklore. And for me, this week's shout out for any Manchester United player is the king, Mr. Eric Cantona. See how I've got my collars up throughout the whole show? Shameless that is, isn't it? It's so embarrassing. Oh my goodness. But anyway, right, back to it. We've only got a few seconds left. Just want to say a massive thank you for everyone getting involved in the stream today. Really appreciate you spending the time just before a Man United game. I think the game's just about kicking off now. So make sure you head over, watch the game, get in touch with MUFC, MPB, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And make sure you drop me a little follow. Anil Candola on all platforms. Drop me a DM. All of that kind of stuff. Let me know what you guys want to talk about for the next show. I'll be here again next Tuesday to bring you all the latest on Manchester United. And let's hope Man United have had a few wins in the bank by then. Glory, glory, Man United, hated, adored, never ignored. And more importantly, Glazers out every single day. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this stream. Take care and come on, United. Let's get a big win this evening.